Bills of exchange, promissory notes and checks. Dear students, today let us discuss about bills of exchange, promissory notes and checks in detail. Bills of exchange. A bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing signed by the maker directing a certain person to pay on demand or at a fixed or a determinable future time a certain sum of money to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer. The maker of a bill of exchange is called the drawer. The person who is directed to pay is called the drawee. The person to whom the money is to be paid is called the payee. An acceptance, however, may be general or qualified. If the acceptor simply signs his name across the face of the bill with or without the name of the bank where payment will be made, the acceptance is general. But if he adds a remark to the effect that payment will be made only upon a certain condition being fulfilled, or that only a part of the sum mentioned will be paid, or that payment will be made at a certain place or time only, the acceptance is qualified. A general acceptance is therefore one which assents to the order of the drawer without any qualification. A qualified acceptance, on the other hand, varies in express terms the effect of the bill as drawn, and the holder of a bill may refuse a qualified acceptance and treat the bill as dishonored by non-acceptance. An acceptance may be qualified in 5 different ways as follows. Conditional. Accepted subject to delivery of bill of lading. 2. Partial. A bill drawn for 300 accepted only for 100 rupees. Local. Accepted payable at Central Bank of India only. Qualified as to time. A bill drawn at 2 months, accepted payable at 3 months. An acceptance by some of the drawees, not all. A bill drawn on ABC and accepted by A and B only. Promissory note. A promissory note is an unconditional promise in writing made by one person to the another, signed by the maker, engaging to pay on demand or at a fixed or a determinable future time a certain sum of money to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer. Check. Check is a written order drawn by a customer of a bank requiring his banker to pay on demand a specified sum of money to the person named therein or to bearer. A bill to bearer can be negotiated by delivery only. A bill to order can be negotiated by endorsement and delivery. Endorser. When the maker or holder of a negotiable instrument signs his name for the purpose of negotiation, on the back thereof he is said to endorse the same and is called the endorser. If the endorser signs his name only, the endorsement is said to be in bank, and if he adds a direction to pay the amount mentioned in the instruments to or to the order of a specified person, the endorsement is said to be in full or a special endorsement, as pay to A or order Jones, and the person so specified is called the endorsee of the instrument. A restrictive endorsement prohibits the further negotiation of the bill or stipulates that it shall be dealt with only in the manner directed in the endorsement, as pay to A only Jones, or pay to A for the account of B Jones. An endorsement sans recourse, without recourse, is used where a person endorses a bill as an agent but expressly relieves himself from liability as an endorser to all subsequent endorsees, as pay A or order sans recourse Jones. A facultative endorsement is where the endorser waives some right to which he is entitled, as pay A or order notice of dishonor waived Jones. A promissory note can also be negotiated in just the same way as a bill of exchange. Referee in case of need is a person to whom the holder of a bill may resort in case of dishonor by non-acceptance or non-payment by the drawee. The name of such referee may be inserted in the bill by the drawer or any endorser. The usual form is, in case of need, apply to A, B and C Jones. Liability of maker, drawer and acceptor. The maker of a promissory note or check, the drawer of a bill of exchange until acceptance, and the acceptor are respectively liable thereon as principal debtors, and the other parties thereto are liable thereon as sureties for the maker, drawer, or acceptor, as the case may be. Liability of endorser. The endorser is bound to every subsequent holder in case of dishonor by the drawee, acceptor, or maker to compensate such a holder for any loss or damage caused to him by such a dishonor, provided due notice of dishonor has been given to such endorser. The holder of a bill is one who receives and retains possession of the bill. Holder in due course means any person who, for consideration, became the possessor of the promissory note, bill of exchange, or cheque before the amount mentioned therein become payable, and without having sufficient cause to believe that any defect existed in the title of the person from whom he derived his title. The duty of the holder of a bill is to present it for payment at the place where it is payable and on the date on which it is paid. Payment is due, otherwise the drawer and endorser are released from the liability. The maturity of a promissory note or bill of exchange is the date at which it falls due. Days of grace. Every promissory note or bill of exchange which is not expressed to be payable on demand, at sight, or on presentment is at maturity on the third day after the day on which it is expressed to be payable. Time of payment. Bills drawn on demand and at sight are payable upon representation to the drawee or acceptor. As to the bills drawn after date, the period begins to run from the date of the bill. When the bill is drawn after sight, the term of the bill begins to run. The term of the bill begins to run from the date of citing, that is, when presented for acceptance. In such a case, the date may be started in the acceptance in order to fix the maturity of the bill. Calculation of time of payment. Where a bill is payable at a fixed period after date or after sight, the time of payment is determined by excluding the day from which the time is to begin to run and by including the day of payment. Thus, a bill drawn on 5th March at 2 months after date would mature on 8th May. Signature in representative capacity. When a person signs a bill in a representative capacity, either as a drawer, acceptor, and endorser, he must clearly specify such representative capacity on his signature, as otherwise he would become personally liable on such bill. Thus, a person representing a firm should sign per pro CP Roe and Company, Leamohan. In a limited company, the signature will take the following form: for and behalf of Indian Patents Limited, R. Gupta, Director. Inland bill. A promissory note or bill of exchange or cheque drawn in India and made payable in or drawn upon any person resident in India is called an inland bill, foreign bill. Any such instrument not so drawn as inland bill or made payable is called a foreign bill. Usance. Usance is the customary time at which foreign bills are made payable in a particular country. For instance, the usance between London and Bombay is 30 days after sight. Dishonor by non-acceptance. A bill of exchange is said to be dishonored by non-acceptance when the drawee makes default in acceptance upon being duly required to accept the bill. Dishonor by non-payment. A promissory note, bill of exchange, or cheque is said to be dishonored by non-payment when the maker of the note, acceptor of the bill, or the drawee of the cheque makes default in payment upon being duly required to pay the same. Notice of dishonor. When a bill of exchange is dishonored by non-acceptance or non-payment, or when a promissory note or cheque is dishonored by non-payment, the holder thereof must give notice that the instrument has been so dishonored to all other parties whom he seeks to hold liable thereon. When a drawee of a bill refuses to accept the same, or having accepted it refuses to honor it by paying the amount when due, the holder of the bill hands it to a notary public, who again presents the bill for acceptance or payment, and in case of meeting with another refusal, he notes the non-acceptance and non-payment by writing on a slip of paper the answer given to his demand, which he attached to the bill. This is called noting a bill. A formal declaration by notary public that he had presented a dishonored foreign bill of exchange either for acceptance or for payment, that his demand was answered as set forth in his certificate, and that he formally protests against the drawer's refusal to accept or to pay, as the case may be, is called a protest, and the act is called protesting a bill. Inland bills do not require to be protested. A foreign bill must be protested after it has been noted for dishonor in order to retain the liability of the drawer and endorsers. Acceptance for honor supra protest is where a bill having been protested for dishonor by non-acceptance, any person not being a party already liable thereon, with the consent of the holder, accept it for the honor of any of the parties concerned. Payment for honor supra protest is where a bill has been protested for a non-payment and any person intervenes and pays it for the honor of any party liable thereon or for the honor of the person for whose account the bill is drawn. Bank draft is a bill of exchange drawn by banker on one of his agents or correspondents. Accommodation bill, a bill which is drawn, accepted or endorsed without receiving value in exchange for it, but simply to oblige a party and assist him to obtain money by negotiating it, is known as accommodation bill. Bearer or order check. A check may be drawn payable to bearer or order. A bearer check is paid. A bearer check is paid by bank to the person presenting it. An order check must be endorsed by the person in whose favor it is drawn before it will be paid by the banker. A check may be negotiated just like a bill of exchange and may pass through several hands with or without endorsement, as the case may be, before it is presented for payment. A crossed check is one that has two parallel lines drawn across the face of it, generally with the words "and company" between the lines. A banker will not give cash in exchange for a crossed check to anyone but to another banker, but a customer paying the same in his current account will get credit for the amount of the check. The object of crossing a check is to prevent anyone having fraudulently obtained the possession of it, cashing it over the bank counter. A check crossed with or without the words "and company" between the two lines is said to be crossed generally. If the name of any particular bank is inserted between the lines, the check is said to be crossed specially, and it must then be presented for payment through the bank thus specially named. When a check bears the words "not negotiable" across the face of it, it means that the holder of such check has no better title to it than the person from whom he received it had. Thus, if we gave cash or sold goods in exchange for a not negotiable check which had been stolen, we might have to make good the loss to the person from whom the check was stolen. The following are illustrations of general crossing. First one, two parallel lines. Second one, two parallel lines with "and company." Third one, two parallel lines under 100 rupees. Third one, two parallel lines not negotiable. Two parallels not negotiable and company. Two parallels not negotiable under 100 rupees. Two parallel lines account payee only. The following are illustrations of special crossing. Two parallel lines in between written as Central Bank of India Limited. Two parallel lines Central Bank of India Limited not negotiable. Two parallel Central Bank of India under 100 rupees. Two parallel Central Bank of India Limited account payee only. Dishonored checks. When a person draws a check in excess of the amount deposited by him with his banker on current account without previously arranging for an overdraft, the banker will ordinarily refuse payment and the check would be said to be dishonored. The check would be returned to the payee with a slip indicating the reason for such refusal in any one of the following ways. RD referred to drawer. NS not sufficient funds. IF insufficient funds. NA no assets. NE no effects. The payment of a check is sometimes refused and the check is returned to the bankers for other reasons indicated on a slip as under. Effects not cleared. The proceeds of checks or bills paid in by the drawer have not been collected and credited to the drawer's account. Payment stopped. Notice to stop payment has been received from the drawer. Endorsement irregular. The endorsement by the payee on the back of the check is not properly made. Forms of bills of exchange. This is the form of bill of exchange. On the left hand top corner side, revenue stamp is there. On the right hand top corner side, place and date are available. Rupees 500 is the amount. 3 months after date, pay to me or to my order the sum of 500 rupees or for value received. Signed by J. Rustam G. to Messrs. Hermos G and Company, Bombay. And Hermos G Company has signed, accepted, payable at the Central Bank of India Limited, signed by Hermos G and Company. In this case, J. Rustam G is the drawer and also the payee. Hermos G and Company are the drawees and have become acceptors on accepting the bill. The acceptance is general in this case. Similarly, this is another bill, revenue stamp, place and date, rupees 750. 2 months after date, pay to Smith and Company or order the sum of rupees 750 for value received. Signed by R. Rustam G. to Messrs. Green and Company, Bombay. And it has been signed by Green and Company, accepted, payable at the Bank of India Limited only. In this case, J. Rustam G is the drawer, Smith and Company are the payee, and Green and Company the drawee and acceptor. The acceptance is qualified as to place. Further, another form of bill of exchange, revenue stamp, place and date, rupees 1000. On demand, pay to me or to my order the sum of rupees 1000 for value received. Signed by J. Rustam G. to Messrs. Dawood and Company, Bombay. And Dawood and the Company has accepted and signed. The above is another instance of general acceptance. Foreign bills are usually made in sets of 3 and each bill is transmitted separately and at a different time. When one of the bills is paid, the other two become void. Form of bill of exchange, foreign bills of exchange. Stamp and place and date as usual is available, and it is pounds 600. 3 months after sight, pay this first of exchange, second and third of the same tenor and the date unpaid to the order of Messrs. John and Sons Company, to John Jones and Company, the sum of 600 pounds sterling for value received, which place to account as advised. P. Sorabji has signed, he is the drawer, to Messrs. Jackson and Company, London. This is another form of foreign bill of exchange. Place and date, pounds 600. 3 months after sight, pay this second of exchange, first and third of the same tenor and the date as to the order of Messrs. John and Son, John Jones and Company, the sum of 600 pounds sterling for value received, which placed to account as advised. P. Sorabji to Messrs. Jackson and Company, London. This is the third foreign exchange bill, Bombay, 15th January 1938, whatever the date may be, to 600 pounds. 3 months after sight, pay this third of exchange to the order of Messrs. John Jones and Company, the sum of 600 pounds sterling for value received, which placed to accept as advised. P. Sorabji signed, to Messrs. Jackson and Company, London. This is prepared in triplicate like this, foreign bills of exchanges. Now comes to form of promissory note, revenue stamp, place and date, rupees 50. 1 month after date, I promise to pay Messrs. Turner and Company or order the sum of rupees 50 for value received, signed by John Jones. So John Jones is promising to pay Messrs. Turner and Company. So this is a promissory note. Promissory note 2, stamp, revenue stamp and place and date, rupees 300. 3 months after date, we promise to pay B. Brown or order the sum of rupees 300 for value received, signed by John Jones, B. Kovas G. This is called a joint promissory note and both signatures are liable it on jointly. This is another form of promissory note, stamp and place and date as usual, rupees 300. 6 months after date, we jointly and severally promise to pay B. Brown or order the sum of rupees 300 for value received, signed by John Jones and B. Kovas G. This is called a joint and several promissory note, and therefore the makers are liable either jointly or separately for the payment of the amount when it falls due. Advantage of bill of exchange. The advantages of a bill of exchange may briefly be summarized as under: 1. As it is a written and signed acknowledgement of debt, it affords conclusive proof of indebtedness, and there can hardly be any defense to an action at law on a debt due on a bill of exchange. 2. As it fixes the date of payment, the creditor knows when to accept his money, and the debtor also knows when he will be called upon to pay. 3. The debtor thus enjoys his full period of credit, as he can never be called upon to pay the amount of the bill before the due date. 4. The creditor need not necessarily lock up his money till the due date of the bill, as the latter can be turned into cash by being discounted. 5. It is a negotiable instrument and can be transferred from hand to hand in settlement of debts between persons and firms in the same or different countries. 6. It affords an easy means of transmitting money from one place to another. 7. It enables traders to help each other financially by lending their names on accommodation bills. Bills receivable and bills payable. A bill of exchange is an order drawn by a creditor on debtor. It will be a bills receivable to the drawer and a bills payable to the acceptor. As a promissory note is a promise drawn by a debtor in favor of a creditor, it will be bills payable to the maker and bills receivable to the creditor. The former bills receivable book and bills payable book have already been given and explained in our lecture number 8, Purchases Books, Sales Books, Bills Books. Documentary bills. Documentary bills are bills of exchange which are accompanied by various documents such as bill of lading, doc warrant, delivery order, policy of insurance, and invoice. These bills are largely dealt with by bankers who make advances upon them. The following is a specimen of a documentary bill in ordinary use. Stamp and date and place and date are available as usual. Exchange for ₹5,000. 2 months after sight of the first of exchange, second and third of the same tenor and the date unpaid, pay to us or our order the sum of ₹5,000, value received against J and Company, 30 cases of goods per SS Hindustan and placed to account as advised. Shipping documents attached to be surrendered on acceptance. Signed by Banerjee and Sons to Jones and Company, London. The above bill will be endorsed in favor of the bank with whom the same is discounted. When a banker advises against shipments, he sends the bill abroad with the bills of lading attached for payment. When the documents are given up against acceptance, the banker has then to rely upon the acceptor regarding whom he should have satisfactory information. In the next lecture, we will discuss about the journal entries in respect of acceptance, dishonor, renewal of bills, bills payable, etc.